Everyone's going to be able to hear us now.
I just want to test volume. Commissioner Hanson, can you hear me okay?
Yeah, everything's great.
Thank you.
Everyone's going to be able to hear us now.
I just want to test volume. Commissioner Hanson, can you hear me okay?
What was the question? Are you still are you still hearing me, or have I frozen up? No,
Still hearing you.
moving.
And we have an echo, so we're just figuring that out.
Okay. Okay. Are you still hearing me, or have I frozen up? No,
Still hearing you.
moving.
And we have an echo, so we're just figuring that out.
Okay.
The echo.
This is
This is just a test, see if we're still getting echo. Seems to be working on this end. The echo.
This
is just a test, see if we're still getting echo. Okay, thank you.
discussed it. So
Just a test to see if we still have the echo.
I hear you coming on and off.
discussed it. So
Just a test to see if we still have the echo. Oh, that's really a delay.
I don't know what else to try. Should we
I
try pulling it out?
hear you coming on and off.
Steve, maybe we can.
And there's also a lag time of about
Just a test to see if we
15,
still have
20
the echo.
seconds.
That's really a delay.
What? I don't know what else to try. Should we
I
try pulling it out?
hear you coming on and off.
yeah,
And there's also a lag time of about
Just a test to see if we still have the echo. That's really a delay.
What? I don't know what else to try. Should we try pulling it
I
out?
hear you coming on and off.
and there's also a lag time of about
I'm just going to turn our microphone off to stop all this.
Give me a number to call.
That might have just fixed it.
Testing.
Hey, Jim, it's not you, it's them.
Oh.
it's them.
Okay, we'll
Oh.
test from here. Yay.
It's them.
Okay, we'll
Oh.
test from here.
Here's the,
Okay. I'm gonna-
This is just for another test. This is just for another test. Testing, we made some changes.
Oh, I know what it is. Wait. It's this. I bet you this is not. this.
Testing, we made some changes.
Oh, I know what it is. Wait. It's this. I'm not 100% sure that that's what's going to do it, just because I want to make sure now that we can hear them. So let's try.
Somebody rejoin.
Okay, can somebody say something to see if we can hear you, please?
Testing, sibilance,
Can you hear us?
sibilance.
testing,
So
testing.
that actually turned off my speaker. So it's not this.
Is there a sound on
Is there a
YouTube there?
sound right there? Let's try that. Okay, now I think we're gonna be okay.
Still got the sound off on the computer though.
Oh, did it go? Oh, it didn't go back on? Okay, let's try that. I see, I have to click both. Thank you. All right. So, and that one we did, so now we just need to find this one, which is. This is not- Okay, can you hear us?
Yes.
Great. I don't think we'll have an echo.
Sounds good right now.
Thank you.
Sorry, guys. It just occurred to me. Okay, should I start recording? Oh, goodness.
Right. Good evening. The June 9th, 2022 Whatcom County Planning Commission meeting is called to order. I will call the roll. Please tell if you are here. Robert Bartel. Here. Kelvin Barton, that's me, I'm here. Atul Deshmani.
Here.
Jim Hansen.
Here.
Stephen Jackson,
Here.
Julie Jefferson,
Here.
Kimberly Lund,
Here.
Dominic Masseri,
Here.
Scott Van Dalen.
Here.
Please join me for the flag salute. And Tammy will put a flag up on the screen for us. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Before we go to department update, I've asked our planning commission coordinator, Tammy, if she would introduce Becky. Becky used to be the planning commission coordinator, and she's here for some training, and I expect we'll fill in sometimes. So Tammy, would you go ahead and tell what we have going on here?
Certainly, I have Becky sitting beside me here to my right. I'm not sure if that's your left or whatever on the video, but and she has been with the department for a long time, used to do planning commission meetings before I came along and before Ashley. So she is going to sit here today, learn how to run things, at least visually. She's been watching, she set up the Zoom today and things. So I did the YouTube thing, that was me. And then she'll be ready if I get hit by a bus or anything, she'll be ready to step in and we'll have a backup. So that's just the plan for tonight. So thank you, Becky. Good to have you. Thanks.
Thank you. And so it's time now for department update, and then Assistant Planning Director Steve Robert, will you give us a department update?
You bet. Yeah, so there's a couple of things that were at council, last council meeting. They talked about battery energy storage systems. So this was a applicant initiated request for code amendment. And so there's a company that's looking to site a battery energy storage facility in the county. And so they requested several code updates to make that happen. So there was a briefing at council that's been ongoing for some time. It looks like it's getting close to where the council is going to make a decision on it. And it's been ongoing really with conversations with the applicant. And so because it is a applicant initiated request for a code amendment, it didn't come through the planning commission. So that will be on the council's next agenda to potentially make a decision on those code amendments to allow for the site. So the other thing that we have going to council are interlocal agreements with all the Whatcom County cities, since we're getting ready to dive into the next comp plan update, major update, which will be due statutorily due in 2025. As you know, we'll be talking about this a lot over the next little while. All of our interlocals with the cities having to do with annexation, having to do with planning are getting ready to expire at the end of June. And so we're updating all of those. And so 5 of those are to council with agreements. 2 of them we're still working with the cities on, and we'll be asking for an extension. The council will get an extension of the existing agreements for 6 months, so we can finish the negotiations with those cities and come back to the finish.
Thank you, Steve. It is time now for open session for public comment. Tammy, would you go ahead and take over?
Certainly. All right, welcome to the meeting. This meeting is being broadcast live. The audio is being recorded and will be posted to the county website. As noted on our website, members of the public may watch the meeting or join online or by phone. During the open public comment session, speakers may not speak to items that are scheduled on the agenda for a public hearing tonight. We do not have a public hearing tonight, so that's not applicable. If you would like to provide public comment at this time, we will take comments from, well, we don't have anyone in the room, but with our new hybrid process, we would normally take them from those in the room first. We do have 3 attendees, so if you would like to provide public comment tonight, please raise your hand. If you're using the internet or a mobile device, you can hit the hand icon. If you're using a cell phone, please press *9. Okay, we have one hand raised. I'm going to bring up a timer and then so. See, that would be over here, correct? All right, so Alexander, we'll have you go first, and you have 3 minutes to speak. Please state your full name for the record and direct your comments to the chair. The screen timer, if you can see it, will show when your 3 minutes are up. If you're not able to see it, we will announce the time and or mute your microphone towards the end. So go ahead, Alexander.
Thank you. Good evening, Chair and Commissioners. My name is Alexander Harris. I'm the Land and Water Policy Manager at Resources, a Bellingham-based nonprofit. I am very appreciative of all the work that the planning commissioners and staff at the county have done so far to update the overlay district code in the Lake Whatcom watershed. I would urge a delay on any vote this evening and further discussion in the coming weeks on the exact parameters of some of these Lake Whatcom overlay district updates. Resources and other nonprofits in the area are very interested in making sure these updates are sustainable, they're reasonable. They also move the needle on phosphorus loading in the lake. Currently, we're not on the trajectory to recover water quality in the lake. That's the position of the organization I work for, and we need to take further action to shift that trajectory and actively retain however much forest we can while also respecting private property rights and development rights in the watershed. So to make sure we thread that needle, I suggest additional time is taken over the coming weeks to refine these amendments and make sure we land in the right spot. I'm more than willing to answer questions tonight. Otherwise, I'll just be here to listen. So thank you all.
Thank you. And then, Michael, go ahead and state your full name for the record, please.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Michael Fier, Executive Director from the Whatcom Million Trees Project. I'm calling from Seattle, actually, and I'm going to become a granddad in just a few hours. So I have other things on my mind at the moment besides trees. But I'm here anyways because your overlay district has important long-term impacts for our watersheds, especially the tree retention piece. So I'm basically here to echo what Alex just said. And in fact, we've been working together on this. You've seen several different tree retention approaches over the last few weeks, but there's been no opportunity yet to fine tune the best approach interactively with one person in particular, and that's Mike Kirschner. And together with Mike's input and just all of us being able to have some time to fine tune further, I'm 100% sure we can develop an even better consensus recommendation for you and a clear, united approach to consider regarding the trees. It's crucial to get this policy right in every way, including how it's implemented every day at the counter. So please give us 1 month to do this. I'd normally suggest a 2-week delay, but with the need for a staff memo a week before each meeting that really only leaves us 1 week of working time, not enough for the needed back and forth with county staff. And in our view, in the big picture, 1 month more in the drafting process will not matter. As Alex said, I'm also happy to answer questions here tonight about any aspect of anything. But please consider a 1 month delay in terms of us all presenting our final recommendations together as a consensus. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I noticed that someone with a phone number ending in 991 has joined the meeting. If you would like to speak, please press *9 to raise your hand. Okay, no other hands are raised.
Thank you, Tammy. So it's time now for commissioner comments. Any commissioner comments tonight? Commissioner Masseri, go ahead.
Yeah, I'd just like to say that I talked to Alex from Resources about the different tables that we have here. That's it.
Commissioner Lund, go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to share that I had an email dialogue with Michael, who just gave public comment about his desire to work with county staff to get a solution, to seek more time to get a solution that worked for all parties. So just wanted to share that email thread.
Thank you. Commissioner Jackson, go ahead.
Thank you. I just want to congratulate Michael on becoming a granddad soon.
I appreciate that. So I'm chuckling here, so I have to explain it that I was chairing a meeting and I was doing it from my house because my daughter was in labor, and in the middle of the meeting, the doctor called and needed some family medical history, and Commissioner Lund took over his chair for a little while, and baby girl arrived about an hour after the meeting, so I'm chuckling for Michael. So okay, so it's approval of the minutes for May 26th.
I would move that we approve the minutes of the May 26th Whatcom County Planning Commission meeting.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
Thank you, Commissioner Lund. Okay, are there any corrections or comments on the minutes? Okay, seeing none. Tammy, would you call the roll, please?
Okay, we'll start with Commissioner Jackson.
I will abstain.
Commissioner Jefferson, Commissioner Jefferson. Okay, we're going to come back to you. Commissioner Lund,
I approve.
Commissioner Masseri,
Yes.
Commissioner Van Dalen,
Yes.
Commissioner Bartel,
Yes.
Commissioner Desmani,
Yes.
Commissioner Hanson. Oh, we might have lost him. So Commissioner Jefferson
Yes.
and Commissioner Hanson. But we do have enough votes to have that carried, so.
Yeah, Commissioner Barton.
Oh, I'm sorry, Commissioner Barton.
Yes.
Thank you.
So on our agenda for tonight is Public Health Advisory Board opportunities for connection and participation. Steve Bennett, you're going to make the presentation on that for us.
Yes.
Thank you.
All right. Thanks for having me. My name is Steve Bennett. I'm a professor of public health at Western Washington University. I'm also the chair of the Public Health Advisory Board here in Whatcom County. The Public Health Advisory Board, for those that might not know about it, we serve to support decision-making within the health department, as well as the health board. The health board in Whatcom County currently is our county council. And so we advise the county council on health policies and review health policies and procedures, and essentially share our views and often come up with policies on our own to present to the health board. The reason I'm here today is because currently the state has changed our roles and responsibilities, and the state has expanded the roles and responsibilities of the Public Health Advisory Board, essentially now requiring us to review any health policies and review any impacts that other policies might have on public health. And one of the things that we've realized in kind of reviewing our plans for the future and the makeup of our board is that there are multiple boards and commissions within the county that are reviewing or working on policies that impact public health. Obviously, the Planning Commission here, like environmental health, is one of our biggest impacts, built environment, and a lot of other impacts of environment and development. And one of the things that we need to do is we need to expand the size of the Public Health Advisory Board. Throughout, ironically, the Public Health Advisory Board throughout the course of the pandemic got smaller and smaller. And so we're in the process of going through an expansion. And one of the ways that we have attempted to respond to this is by inviting other boards and commissions that have an interest in public health or an impact on public health to have a member of their board or commission sit on the Public Health Advisory Board as a member. We feel that that will increase partnership, increase communication. That individual has the ability to bring their knowledge of what's happening on this commission into the Public Health Advisory Board and vice versa. More than anything, it's really just an opportunity for increased partnership. And I think it's in the stated interest of the health board as well as the health department to try to increase these types of communication. The role and responsibility of the individual would be attendance to one monthly meeting that we have in order to be a voting member. Those meetings tend to happen on the morning of the first or second Thursday every month from 7 to 8:30. And they follow a hybrid model like the one that you are doing here. Beyond that, any other engagement that that individual would want to have with the Public Health Advisory Board would be the choice of them. But their main minimum role would be to essentially kind of carry the knowledge and of what's happening on this commission into the Public Health Advisory Board as well, and to kind of help us align a lot of the actions that are going on in the county that might impact public health. And that's the main thing that I was just bringing here today as an opportunity. Happy to answer any questions or anything like that.
Commissioners, are there any questions for Steve Bennett? Yeah. So, Steve, I have a question. Are you looking for someone to come from this board to attend once a month at these meetings?
Yeah, if someone on this board is interested in being a member of PHAB that as a representative kind of this commission, then we would just essentially go through the process of having them become a PHAB member as well. That being said, we're also open to other opportunities or other types of partnership. Maybe they don't want to be a full PHAB member, but when we have items that this board is interested in, then a member can come and join.
And of course, any commissioner would be welcome to attend those meetings, even if they weren't representative.
Sure. Anyone in Whatcom County technically is free to attend and welcome to attend.
Commissioner Jefferson, go ahead.
I was just going to ask, what is the process if you're interested in this, filling this seat?
I would say that we have a small application that's just the county application that's existed for years to be on PHAB. You would fill that out, and then we have a few other names of other boards and commissions of people who are joining, and we'll turn those names into the county council, and then the county council approves them, and then that's it.
Okay, so get that on the website.
If you're interested, I can get it sent to you.
Yes, please.
Okay.
Commissioner Hanson.
I've been going on and off my Zoom. I'm also on the phone, so can I please be reminded of what I push on the dial to raise my hand on the phone?
To raise your hand, it's *9. And
Star
yeah,
9.
*9. And to unmute, it's *6.
Okay, good. The next
right.
time I disappear, you'll hear me on the phone.
All right, any other questions for Steve Bennett? Thank you so much.
Thank you. And I'll get that application sent out.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Have a great night.
And I inadvertently reversed topic, so sorry, I have it on one way on one of them, and anyway, reversed. But updates to the Open Meetings Act, Open Public Meetings Act, and proposed amendments to the Planning Commission business rules. So Cammie, you wrote this up. Would you talk just a little bit about it, and then before we have, or Steve, are you going to take care of that?
Either one.
It's up to Tammy.
That's
Okay.
fine. I know, had some allergies going on earlier, so I was gonna have into it. But,
Yeah, and then after Tammy's done, I'm just gonna have one comment here, and then commissioners will open the floor for you. So go ahead.
Okay, so as I wrote in the memo, and as we've discussed before, the governor rescinded the rules as far as the OPMA being remote meetings. But in addition to that, they also passed a couple of additional rules in something called in House Bill 1329. And so with that bill, one of the things that they're talking about and that they would like us to do is have people be able to make comments on or before the meeting where a decision is made. So if we're planning a decision and we've already had a public hearing and the meeting goes on, let's say maybe we have several meetings about something, we need to provide the opportunity for public comment again at the last meeting. We do not have to have a public hearing, and we can, there are a couple of other things that we can do. We can say, we probably don't want to do this right now at this particular meeting. It's something to think of for the future. But to keep it simple, what we talked about was just taking the second bullet off of the open session instructions in the business rules. And so where it says items that have had a public hearing and are still under deliberation by the Planning Commission, saying that, taking that out so that people can comment if they come in person. So that's kind of our suggested recommendation at this time, that we're open to what the commission prefers in this. We just have to allow it in some manner.
Okay, and the comment as chair, I'd like to actually, if we're going to make a motion on these, take these in two separate motions. There'll be a little bit of discussion on the second bullet, and if that's okay with everybody, I just thought that would make it a little easier to split the motion into if there is a motion.
So that the first bullet exists, right? So that's existing business.
Yes. Let's see. So it's consider amending, and then we have the first bullet, which is items that are scheduled.
Yeah, the first bullet is already that.
Okay,
There were two and we're just taking one away.
we're just taking one away then? Okay, that's my misunderstanding. So if the commissioner would like to make a motion, go ahead, and I'll speak after we, Commissioner Desmani.
I'm not ready to make a motion yet, but I wanted to raise, Chair, for discussion. In the business rules, it appears that what it's saying is that going forward, there will be no option for commissioners to attend remotely. Is that correct?
No, commissioners can attend remotely. Are you talking about the new House bill? It says even, the rule there says that even if there's no state of emergency, commissioners can attend remotely.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure I understood that, and thanks for that clarification.
Commissioner Jefferson.
I just have a question. I'm trying to follow along, but I'm on the May 31st memo that is from Tammy that is bulleted. Is that the only document we have towards this conversation?
That's the only document, yes, and the proposed change is at the very bottom. There's a bullet removed with track changes, second line from the bottom.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Masseri.
Yeah, just to be clear, the way that I'm reading this is that anybody making public comment could talk about something we've already had a hearing, but you mentioned in person. Is that true?
It can be in person or it can be written. And we can say that like if we wanted to do something different than this, we could say we will take written comments up to that meeting and set a deadline for it. We can set a reasonable deadline as well.
Okay, and maybe I misunderstood in person. In person could be remotely.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
I was thinking when you said in person, you meant physically attending.
Oh, yeah, sorry, it could be remotely.
Okay.
Yes, thank you. Should have said verbal.
So I had kind of similar questions, so if anybody has questions, please ask. Commissioner Jefferson.
Another question, when I look down at the proposed changes, we are not proposing to change open public meetings are no longer required to be held remotely, but community members can still call in, is that correct? To participate?
That's correct. We're doing hybrid meetings, and so we just basically have to provide a public venue so that if the public wants to come in person, they can.
Okay, I appreciate that. I actually like that, but I want to make sure it wasn't being changed. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Commissioner Lund, go ahead.
Well, if there aren't further questions, I would move to accept removing the second bullet as we've received in our packet. So I'd make a motion to accept the amendment as presented by county staff to change our business rules.
I'll second.
Are there any commissioners that would like to discuss it? I'll have a comment here if there are no one else. So I'll go ahead. That bullet to remove, we at one point want to allow people, if we've already had a public hearing and it carried over to the next meeting, we had I'll say a discussion because we ended up allowing it, but we had a discussion because we've already had a public hearing and going through the Cherry Point amendments that went so long, and there were so many things that occurred over those several months that that we found that this rule to let someone talk about something we've already had a hearing on at a subsequent meeting, and that was not really a good, it was a well-intentioned rule, but it wasn't a great rule for getting business done. And especially as we would go through a document and we might make changes on a document at one meeting, and then no one was allowed to talk about those changes that we had made that we hadn't passed. We would just had changed them in the proposal. So I think it's a good idea to take this line out. So is there any other discussion on this? Tammy, would you call the roll, please?
Commissioner Jefferson,
Agree to the change.
Commissioner Lind,
Yes.
Commissioner Masseri,
Yes.
Commissioner Van Dalen,
Yes.
Commissioner Bartel,
Yes.
Commissioner Desmani,
Yes.
Commissioner Hanson,
Yes.
Commissioner Jackson,
Yes.
Commissioner Barton.
Yes.
That's 9 yeses, that carries. Thank you.
Okay, so we are back to our work session on the proposed amendments in the Lake Whatcom Watershed Overlay District. Staff Strong, would you go ahead and present to us, please?
Good evening, Commissioners. Cliff Strong with PDS. So after your last discussion, I started putting the memo together. And as you can kind of tell from the memo, things got a little complicated. And I think that this discussion might end up being a little complicated, but I'm going to try to make it as easy as possible. I think we've dealt with all the kind of housekeeping amendments. I haven't heard any issues from the commission on those, which then boils us down to kind of 3 policy decisions. And that's what should the amount of tree canopy that can be removed when not associated with development, and kind of a subsection of that is when it is associated with development. And then what should be the penalty for removing significant trees without a permit. Does that sound right to the commissioners? Everybody agree that we're just down to those kind of 3 points? Great. And then the second part of that intro in the memo was, we started realizing that there's kind of 3 different ways we could approach the issue of canopy retention. What we currently do is allow a certain percentage of existing canopy, existing back in 2017, allow a certain percentage of that to be removed. And then, we started doing these charts, and I gave you some lot sizes as examples based on, those percentages and were it to change. And then Michael and Alexander kind of picked up on that, and they gave you some other tables that were kind of more based on the calculating the removal based on percentage of the lot size. So we got calculating removal based on existing canopy, based on lot size. But then we also started thinking there's kind of an opposite way of looking at that. And that would be regulating how much canopy has to be retained. So that's a very different approach from what we have right now or what we've been talking about. But I just kind of wanted to throw it out there as we think that these are kind of the 3 formats we could take. So when we start talking about, what should the amount of tree canopy that can be removed and just taking when not associated with development to start with. The commission seemed to like resources million tree projects option number 2. And I tried to simplify their table because, it had lots of different lot sizes, but I tried to make the cutoff points there, and that's what's in your memo. And so, it kind of comes out that, and let me just share my screen here so that. This is kind of a simplified version of their table. So they had a bunch of intermediate steps in here showing, a bunch of different lot sizes, but it really came down to if it's less than a half an acre, 20%, a half an acre to just under 1 acre, 15%, 1 to 3, just under 3 acres. And they had a tiered system where you got the amount that could be removed under these, but you get an extra 1,000 feet for each half acre for this range. And then for this range, you got plus 1,000 square feet for each acre above, and then above 10 acres or more, 14,000. So these first 3 or the first 2 and the last one is fairly simple to calculate, but this part gets a little difficult. And we also weren't sure whether they were talking about this being a canopy removal allowance or required retention. We think it was canopy removal allowance, but again, it's just all unclear. If we go this way, I did put together some text, some kind of sample code language that we could use. So with the appropriate permit, property owners may remove canopy area of significant trees as measured cumulatively in 2017, according to the amount shown in table 1. So you just look at your lot size and you figure out what that amount is, but doing some math here. And then these 3, provideds are the ones that are already in code. So this is kind of the language that we could use if we go that route. If we calculate it, the removal based on % of existing canopy, as we do now, and in the memo, we had suggested that, a real simple way of addressing all this without having folks having to do math is just say that people can remove up to 5,000 square feet of significant trees or tree canopy as measured cumulatively. I want to put that canopy with the same 3 provisos. And then started thinking about if we regulate how much canopy can be retained, we can just say that all properties within the Lake Whatcom Watershed Overlay District or in the other watershed overlay district shall maintain a tree canopy covering a minimum of some percentage. I use 65% because that's what the DOE manual assumes. You can take out 35% and still manage water quality. And of which at least some percentage, I just put in 35% as an example, is comprised of significant trees or trees that will meet that definition of within 20 years. We can't expect somebody to plant a significant tree. And then that percentage of canopy cover can be reduced for, and then development, firewise management, pest and disease outbreaks, hazard trees. So this is just a different way of looking at this thing. I know it's a very different way from what we do now, but it might be worth considering. Is everybody kind of clear on these 3 things? Oh, and I also, one other thing I did, let me put this up, is I actually used Excel to make a couple of tables to show the differences between what these would look like. So So these are just sample lot sizes. And I used different examples of existing canopy coverage. So a lot of 10% canopy cover, 35, 80, 100, just to kind of see how these things turn out. And calculated how much canopy that can be removed. And this is under our current rules. So, up to 5,000 square feet for a 2-acre lot. Once you get to 3, then it starts decreasing. You can see it gets, so you can remove up to this. These columns show what the remaining canopy would be. Okay. Now, I also did this for the proposal put forth by Resources Million Trees Project and calculated out. So this column is, and this is under, there's a lot of scenarios because there's a lot of permutations of all these things. It was driving me crazy trying to figure it out. But if removal allowance is calculated as a percent of existing canopy, this is the canopy that can be removed based on their formulas they presented. And this would be the remaining canopy. And if the removal allowance is calculated as a percentage of the lot size, then this would be the canopy that can be removed. And this is the remaining canopy over here. So you see that they work out roughly the same. The smaller lots, if you calculate it as a percentage of lot size, the smaller lots can remove more. But when you get up to the bigger sizes, they're roughly the same. And then this last one, if we regulate how much canopy has to be retained, and just using 65% as a number to go on, this would be the canopy that can be removed. And you'll see that these are negative numbers here, so you really couldn't remove those, but this would be the canopy, the retained canopy. And so it's slightly less than what, for the bigger lots, slightly less than what the Resources Million Tree folks proposed, but it's a little bit more than what we would see under our current rules. Not a little bit more, a lot more. Especially on the smaller lots with less canopy existing. I know that's a lot to digest. What I would really like to get out of the commission tonight is which way of looking at these things we should draft the final rules on. Everybody's eyes are crossed, aren't they?
Commissioner Masseri has a question here for you.
Yeah, so I was also kind of getting confused on it, Cliff, as I was trying to game out all these scenarios in my head. One, how they looked on the ground as far as the trees that remain or removed, and then 2, how staff is going to process it and how applicants are gonna, understand it. And I kind of came back to maybe we're making it too complicated, and there's another option to stick with the format we have and just possibly adjust the minimum, possibly not, ratchet down the percentages, which would increase tree retention, and then set a maximum, which would limit really large lots clearing huge swaths. So I just want to put that out there as maybe that's a simpler option.
Right, so that's kind of what Resources MTP suggested, at least on the larger lots. It's these intermediate steps that get a little complicated for folks to figure out.
Well, so I'm saying you limit that. You go back to how it's originally done now or currently done now.
Yeah.
And what if you just said the minimum's 5,000 square feet and currently it's 35%. What if you said that's 20? That's a number I just made up, or it's arbitrary. And then you set the maximum at 14,000, 20,000, whatever that number you decide or is decided. Wouldn't really change how you process it now. It would just reduce the amount that could be removed.
Right.
Commissioner Hanson.
Well, I thank Commissioner Mosseri for his words. I thought those are very well thought out. I have a slightly different bias because I see the issue of tree retention as not just an issue of water quality, but also of and climate change. So I tend towards a model that would require a retention of a certain amount of trees on a piece of property rather than allowance of cutting more, because there might not be enough on the property already.
Jim, you're cutting in and out. I can hardly understand what you're saying.
Jim, did you have more you wanted to say? Commissioner Lund, if you can hold just for a moment, Mike Kirschner, I think, wants to weigh in on one of the comments. Go ahead, Mike.
Thank you. I just want to comment on Commissioner Mosseri's comments. We had brought that up, and I just want to kind of call Cliff's attention. If you go back to that Word document, Cliff.
Which one, the memo or the sample code?
The sample code.
Okay, right there.
Yeah, so that's basically what if you look at the calculating removal allowance by percentage of existing canopy, that's essentially, that's kind of what we had talked about briefly in one of our meetings with you, me and Steve, which is property owners may remove up to 5,000 square feet. And then, we threw out, or you could say 10% or 5%, whichever is greater is measured cumulatively. I just want to kind of reiterate, just kind of add that we had tossed that around. I think that is a very doable way to give people a definite target to aim for and to know what they are allowed to remove. That's it. That's my comment.
Commissioner Lund, go ahead.
Well, I'm going to try and give Cliff some answers from, in my humble opinion, to his questions. At the kind of three approaches we're considering, I would favor, in the question, do we consider lot size versus existing canopy? My preference would be to look at existing canopy as captured in 2017. But I'm sitting with the retention of existing canopy that Cliff's brought up for us. And I like that idea because it kind of puts it in the affirmative about what we're trying to do. And that's keep trees on the lot. So I like that overall framework for it. And, but furthermore, I think it makes it more workable from a simplification of policy if we're making exceptions or when we're considering that trees could be removed for a disease outbreak or fire-wise or some of those other pieces. I think that flows pretty well when we have that the way that he's put forth there that he's showing us on the screen. So
the carve outs I had are the ones that you guys, the existing limit of hazard trees, we already let those. So this is just language we already have in our code. These two are ones that were mentioned by Million Tree Project as a potential carve out. It's not set in stone, it's for discussion. And then this one is just for development, basically saying that, so all trees have to maintain a certain percentage of canopy, except if you're doing these things and except if you're doing development, then we'll let you take out a little bit more. It almost seems to me that we could get rid of the whole distinction between tree removal associated with development versus non-development.
I agree.
Commissioner
I think there's a little bit of elegance in this approach. So I'm in favor of us thinking more about this.
Commissioner Desmani.
I have a exploration, and it may require some follow-up questions. So, Chair, forgive me for that. So my question is to staff. What kinds of individuals are going to be impacted by this new regulation as currently proposed?
Well, none of them are proposed. These are all just up for discussion.
Yeah, but let's just say any like the ones that we're reviewing here, something like it. The more complicated ones are implemented.
So examples of development applications that might be affected. Is that what you're asking?
Yeah, I'm kind of curious about the kinds of people that will be impacted by this.
I'll let Mike speak to that because he deals with the permits.
So if we're talking about tree canopy removal or retention, not associated with development, we're mostly talking about small lots, mainly Sudden Valley, and people removing trees that are close to their homes, near their homes, damaging their driveways, things like that. That's mostly what we deal with as far as the tree removal not associated with development.
Okay, and then the other category?
Yeah, so in development, we'd be dealing with home building, additions, detached structures, mobile homes, mainly single-family residential development.
And short plats and long plats?
In theory, yes, but in practice, well, for many years, 10 years, I think, the council had kept re-upping an interim moratorium on subdivisions in the Lake Whatcom watershed. Since then, we've seen one application that never went anywhere and expired. And so we haven't really seen any long plats or short plats in the Lake Whatcom watershed in the past 4 or 5 years.
And why is that?
Well, first was the interim moratorium on subdivision. Since then, I couldn't tell you. I don't know if there's just not a lot of big lots out there. I'm not sure.
Yeah, that would make sense. It's basically developed.
Yep. Yeah. Mainly single family residential development. Yes.
Okay, and if I may, Chair, I'd like to make a comment.
Yes, you may.
So the comment is that based on this information, there's perhaps a very large number of individuals who are impacted by these proposed regulations. I support completely the desire to protect the watershed and improve resilience, which impacts homeowners too, although they may not necessarily appreciate at the time that they're having to deal with new regulations. However, I don't know how we're capturing the unintended consequences of these new regulations as they might impact individual homeowners. And I'm grateful for the involvement of the Million Trees and resources, but who is thinking about the unintended consequences or the complexity that individual homeowners might experience, and how to at least take that into consideration in implementing these regulations? That's my comment.
Commissioner Lund.
Well, to Commissioner Desmani's point, this is actually the third meeting. The first one we didn't get to proceed, but any landowner that signed up for our notifications, this would be the third time this has been in packet. So there's been a lot of opportunity for public involvement, and I'm surprised we haven't actually heard more from anyone on on this issue up to yet. But the voices that we have heard from, I think, are still seeking. We heard in the public comment period to work with staff to refine this. And I think that there's a general feeling, and I would invite, if either Alex or Michael are still on the line, especially before Michael's baby's born, to get in if he wants to say something. But I think they feel that they can reach a workable solution, and that this is actually quite different from what Council Member Donovan put forth when he was working with staff to give broad brushstrokes about this. So I think that from resources and from Walk a Million Trees perspective, if we can endeavor to spend more time on this to make it, there's clarity in the code, it's workable from a staff perspective, and that it obtains the goals of, preserving the water quality in our watersheds, that they can present these changes to council with some enthusiasm and clarity, because it's going to be different than what Councilmember Donovan had put forth. And so I think they want to make sure that there's time for this new approach to be able to be articulated clearly, and that there's consensus that this is workable. And to Commissioner Desmani's point, that there's been ample opportunity for public comment on this matter.
I was losing some people here, the hands. And I want to let the commissioners know we have 2 attendees that have put their hands up if you would like to call on them. If you want to ask some questions. One is Michael, and the other one is the phone number ending in 9991. And the person in 9991, could you just identify who you are for the commissioners?
You can hit *6 to unmute.
Well, go ahead. Commissioner Hanson, go ahead. Commissioner Hanson, can you unmute? Commissioner Desmani, go ahead.
I just wanted to say that if any of the attendees want to respond to my question, I'm open to that, Chair.
Michael, would you like to respond to Commissioner Desmani's questions or comments?
Yes, please. And just thank you to everyone about the baby getting closer, but we're not quite there. Anyways, I just want to say that having a chance to interact with Cliff and Mike on this, rather than us kind of like each are doing our own independent analyses and then not trying to come together, at a meeting like this. If we can interact more and come to a consensus, I think it will help to address the array of possibilities here. And that's true even if we, if you all decide to go with conceptually at least further exploration of a canopy retention approach, which we also feel very favorable about, but just hasn't been a chance to interact yet about it with Cliff and Mike. So, and thank you also, Commissioner Lund, for your summary of where you perceived where we were at about all that. And I think it all was very accurate. We would simply like a chance to interactively meet with Cliff and Mike to put our heads together rather than working in parallel, so we can make a outstanding best approach that would have the nuances needed to address all those small landowners that would be impacted potentially. Thank you.
Alexander, would you like to address Commissioner Desmonte's comment?
Yeah, just very briefly, thank you. I want to reiterate, it would be really helpful to interact with staff some more on this and to toss back and forth some ideas. I actually really like the 3 different options that were put forward. I think any of those could work, but in the interest, what Mike just mentioned about most of these permits are small landowners, small lot sizes, removing trees right around their house. I think we should definitely be shooting for something that is accommodating to that, right? The big picture goal is to increase tree retention at a larger scale. A tree here and there, it should not be holding people back from protecting their driveways or making sure their home is not covered in needles or leaves. So that being said, a simpler approach that accommodates those small landowners, I think, should be the goal, and very much hoping we can work with staff to find that right balance. Thanks.
Commissioner Hanson, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm finding favor with the tree retention approach. And also I'd like to suggest that when we're talking about the development of
We're losing you, Commissioner Hanson. We start get echo and then you went away.
up to the target for the size lot, because I think that would be
We're unable to hear you, Commissioner Hanson. Are you able, when you want to talk, are you able to come in on your phone? So we'll go on to Commissioner Desmonte. Go ahead.
I think I appreciate the comments of Commissioner Lund and everybody else. And I'm glad that there's that sentiment to meet with staff and figure that out. I think we have, in this particular situation, one of the holes in public participation. And that is when there's a large corporation like BP at Cherry Point, when it came to the Cherry Point amendments, with the resources and the staff to participate both in our planning commission meetings and then inside meetings, that largely was able to represent issues and complexities. We don't have that equivalent, and I know staff, it's in their intention to do that, but and I don't have a solution to that problem, but I just think we should just repeating the point, we should recognize that these individual homeowners are not anywhere as sophisticated in that capacity. They know their own situation, but they don't know land use planning and policies. And I just recognizing that this is one of those places where individuals can be not effectively participate in the public process, despite the fact that the old adage, we've had umpteen meetings and they could have participated. I can't disagree with that point, but how many things happen in local government like that? And how many people know how to plug into all the meetings that they need to plug into? So, I mean, just recognizing that.
Commissioner Mosqueda.
Has staff had any interaction with the homeowners association in Sudden Valley? This seems like they would represent the bulk of the people, at least on the small lots, that would be affected by it. So that would be a way to potentially engage them. I know it is later in the process, but that's just a thought.
To answer that, I have done 2 kind of briefings to the Lake Whatcom Policy Group, on which sits the Homeowners Association president. And they heard what we were trying to do and didn't give me any feedback about it.
Commissioner Desmani.
I'll leave it after this last comment. There's a part of me, and I'm saying a part of me because I don't want to create a tiff. There's a part of me that's not terribly enthusiastic about Sudden Valley. It's a community that wants to have its cake and eat it too, in some degree, as it relates to being independent of a municipality, but also collaborating. But having said that, yeah, I mean, it's quite likely that the person at the Homeowners Association is not, an effective representative of the community. So again, we're checking the boxes on public participation, but maybe we're not really getting it. So that's it. I'm done.
Commissioner Masseri.
Yeah, I have one question on the third option. So if you have a certain amount of canopy you're required to retain, is that of the existing or it's based off the lot? And if it's based off the lot, then let's say there was a lot that was cleared well before there was any restrictions on clearing. And it's currently an untreed lot, you then have to plant to build. Is that true?
You need to unmute, Cliff.
That's something I have thought about and actually put a little thing here just to talk about. So lots with less than 65% coverage. One of the options would be to say that if you have less than whatever that percentage is, again, I'm just using 65 as an example. When you come in for a building permit, we'd say you have to replant certain, up to that percentage or something. So really then overall, you're maintaining a 65% coverage or whatever the percentage is throughout the whole watershed. In my mind, an urban forest is one that changes over time. You got to allow the removal of trees and the planting of trees, and they kind of come and go. But as long as you're cutting, you're also replanting, in the long run, it should work out right. So that's something I just had in the back burner, but I'm glad you brought it up. And we don't have to do anything about it, but it was just a thought.
Commissioner Munn.
I had a similar question as Commissioner Mosseri, so I think it's something a situation we should be prepared to address. I'm in favor of staff working with Michael and Alex to refine this. My general opinion is that 65% might seem insufficient. Going back to Cliff's spreadsheets, I think we should endeavor to be closer to the commission's proposed option 2 numbers with whatever approach we land at. So to me, it looks, with the exception of the small lot sizes, there's definitely more retained canopy as with what Cliff has put out. But the larger lots, which sounds like is a very, minor percentage of the cases that we'd be dealing with. But for the larger lots, it's much more similar to what's currently there. So I think we can maybe try to make it a little bit more like the resources MTP proposals.
Yeah, so if you look at like these numbers, so going by what you just said here, if we use, calculated as a percent of existing canopy, this system kind of gets, the numbers are are lower on the smaller ones, but higher on the bigger lots. So if that's the way you want to go, it almost seems that we should do a kind of a, I don't know, there should be a break point at a certain place where it's not just 65%. You know, maybe on small lots, you have to keep 65%. On anything over 5 acres, you have to keep 85% or something like that.
I think that might be a good approach.
And Cliff, are you assuming that the lot size, that the entire lot is tree canopy in all these scenarios?
Well, not necessarily. But if I'm just thinking that if the goal is to have the entire watershed canopied by a certain percentage, and we know that smaller lots are going to remove a higher percentage because they have to fit in houses and things like that. That if at least if we shoot for this 65% or whatever it is, 65 on small, 85 on large or something, overall, I think we'll have more forest in the area, more canopy.
Right, but I guess you're saying canopy that can be removed and remaining canopy. So that's assuming there's a set amount of tree canopy that you started with, which is the lot size, correct?
Right, so that's what these ABCs are, Mike. They're an assumption of a 10% canopy existing, 35, 80, 100.
Okay, gotcha.
So that's what these are. There's so many permutations, I mean, that I just had to make some cutoff points.
Sorry, I was just trying to clarify in my mind.
Yep.
So I'll go ahead and speak here. I agree with those that are saying to meet with million trees and with resources. And then there was a comment about postponing it, not doing it 2 weeks from now, but doing it 4 weeks from now. I think that would be really helpful for us. We're seeing a lot of changes, and I'm looking at the document that's on the screen right now. And I know that we're getting changes that are coming up in between, and it would be nice to have a fresh set of documents. And it might be good, Cliff, to print that out without the side notes telling us when it was put in. That'll make it easier for us to read as, you know, as
these comments. These are basically where I have questions for you.
When we get our next packet, if you could do a printout without your notes on the side, because that gets it gets the font pretty small. And I know we used to do that where we get the 11 by 17s so we can read all of it. And I'm kind of not really a fan. Sorry, turn the ringer off. But if you could do that, that would help us with just getting the flow. And I think the time frame of 4 weeks, where there are some great spreadsheets you've got there, but it'd be nice where they're all laid out, where they flow a little better. We know you're not getting enough time to get it all ready for us the way you'd like, because you have to have it out in about 4 days after this meeting, 4 working days. So,
and I was telling Steve earlier that this project itself is gone so differently from all the other ones, because usually we come to you with a pretty, you know, the well thought out idea of what we're proposing, what we think is right based on state law and all that stuff. But these are all purely policy issues. And that's what we don't want to make choices on. That's why we're giving you so many dang choices. It makes us a little lengthier process than normal. The other issue we wanted to talk about tonight, though, was what the penalty should be for removing trees without a permit. And I outlined in the memo what we heard the different proposals were: replacement ratio of 10 to 1, a replacement ratio of 50% of the tree basal area, require that they be replaced by larger native trees. We'd have to figure out what larger trees means, or increase and codify the fines specific to tree removal. Right now, it can be, they may be fined up to $1,000 for each offense, where every day is such an offense. But we heard that you might, you know, that some of the commissioners thought that should be higher. There's a suggestion by you, Chair, that we do monitoring of trees to make sure that they weren't taken out, kind of like what we do wetland monitoring. And then I provided two other ideas. One was from Resources Million Tree Project, and that was to levy a fine of $120 per removed tree and replace at the 10-to-1 suggested multiplier. Or City of Sammamish, and Steve brought this one up. They require a replacement of trees of a minimum of 2-inch diameter at breast height for every 1 inch of significant tree removed, with a mix of 70% conifers and a reduction if you put in deciduous trees. So those are just ideas. Is any of them sticking to the commission?
Commissioner Masseri.
Yeah, I guess my only thought is if it, again, simplicity, if it's easier to just stick with what we have and make it stricter than switching to the basal area. I think that some of those replacing requirements, like the City of Sammamish has, is also kind of interesting though. But that could be, well, I guess you have to go with the basal area at that point. So.
Well, I think they just use diameter at breast height rather than basal area.
Well, right, but you're doing it based on the size of the trunk, not the canopy.
Right.
I don't know if that was a fully thought out comment, but I was thinking just more towards simplicity.
Commissioner Van Dalen.
Just wondering on the Sammamish proposal. So this, is this saying if somebody took down a tree that was 12 inches in diameter, so there you have to put a 24-inch tree in its place? Is that? And
no, not a 24-inch tree, but enough 2-inch trees to make up. So it'd be 12 2-inch trees.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, you can't, I mean, it's really hard to transplant a large tree.
That's what I was driving towards. When it says for every 1 inch of removed significant tree, I was just wondering how that was worded. There you go.
And planting 2-inch DBH trees is not difficult. You can get in there with shovels. I've done it before on street trees and stuff. That's typically the size of trees one plants for street trees is 2-inch DBH with a 8 feet tall minimum or something.
Commissioner Masseri.
So I guess in thinking about it, regardless if you did the basal area or the canopy, if you had a number of trees that were going to have to be replanted, you could just require that they are these larger trees, 2 inches versus saplings that are more likely to survive, potentially at least less likely to get ran over by a lawnmower.
Hey, I'm hearing interest in something along this line. Is there interest in increasing the fine from $1,000 a day or not? That's our standard fine for really any code violation.
Go ahead.
Chair, are you waiting for me or Mr. Hanson?
Commissioner Hanson, can you unmute?
Yeah, I was trying on the phone, but it wasn't working. And I'd say we should combine some of these and maybe resources and Million Trees can help, like integrating the city of Sammamish with the requiring larger native trees and maybe doing something with a little stiffer fine. It seems like I think we're going in the right direction. It's just narrowing it down a little bit.
Cliff, what do you need from us tonight?
The better, clear direction, the better for me, because then I can easily write things up rather than having to write up multiple scenarios. So, you know, if you could give me a clear indication, I mean, I've heard opinions from a couple of you, but clear indication of what version or combination of these things you like in both instances, both the penalty and then the tree canopy removal. Does the commission want to stick with how we have it? Do you want to go on a per lot base, you know, percentage of lot basis, or do you want to go on a percentage of tree canopy retained? Those kind of big questions would help Mike and I write up the code. Well, help me write it, but help Mike give me input.
Commissioner Desmani.
Just speaking for myself, I like the approach of the percentage of tree canopy maintained.
And I'm going to encourage commissioners to go ahead and express what you would like. I am used to seeing heads nodding and thumbs up and things like that. And we have commissioners here in the room now, and I'm kind of noticing heads nodding, but I know that it doesn't show on the screen. So Commissioner Jackson.
I agree with Commissioner Deshmani.
And I am seeing a head nodding here in the room. Commissioner Lund, go ahead.
That is my preferred approach as well, which I think I already said, but.
I think so, yeah.
So is there anybody that has a feeling a different way? We've had 4 or 5 give indication that they agree with Commissioner Desmani. Anybody have a different thought? Hey, Cliff, why don't you proceed that way?
Well,
and
so we'll get together with Michael and Alexander in the next week, probably. And I'll try to put something together, meet with them, make sure that they're cool with how we're going, and see if they have any better ideas. I'll combine some of these things as we talked about, kind of Sammamish large trees, maybe increase the fine a little bit, but we'll figure that out and give you something, give you an actual opinion this time.
Okay, thank you, Cliff. Anybody, Commissioner Van Dalen, go ahead.
Do we need to make a decision on the 4 weeks request for figuring this out? Is that something we need to decide yet tonight that they were asking for?
Cliff, are you okay with 4 weeks? Is that going to work for planning? Maybe Assistant Director Roberge would like to comment on that.
Yeah, I'm gonna let Steve handle that, because again, I have to get your packet done by next Tuesday morning, and that's a lot to do. But Steve's the one that's pushing me to get this done as soon as possible, and I totally understand.
Well, so what that does is, so your next meeting, we'll talk about wireless. And then on July 14th would be when this would come back to you for this 2 meetings from now, a little over a month. We talk about trees, and then likely, because I doubt we're gonna finish wireless in one, come back to wireless after that. And if you're okay with that.
I'm seeing a lot of affirmatives here. How about the people that are commissioners that are online? Okay, and I'm seeing thumbs up there. And okay, we're going to go ahead and go with that, Cliff. So we'll be 4 weeks out. And
Okay.
we'll do this next.
Or 2 meetings out, however long that is. It's either 4 weeks or 5, depending on the month.
I understand. Yes, 2 meetings out. Right. Is there any other business tonight? Okay, I actually can ask is, are people ready to go home? All right, the meeting is adjourned.
Good night, everyone.
Good night.
Good night. Thank you.